Hello, today we are here to debate about a market for human organs in the US. We have two teams. There will be two interventions and a closing argument per team. Now, I give the space for the affirmative team to initiate the debate.
Good afternoon, I am Quiaro, and our definition of the topic is the legalization of a market for human organs regulated by the HHS, where donors can be financially remunerated for their donations. Our team line is that we are pro-legalization of a market for human organs. And our outline is that due to the high demand and low supply of organs in the US, the best way to increase the supply of organs is by legalizing the market of human organs in order for organ sellers to be financially remunerated. So, to start off, according to the BBC, the US, like nearly every country, is experiencing a permanent shortage of donors. Only 22,000 kidney transplants are performed in the US every year, while there are 100,000 people in queue. The waiting list can be as long as 10 years, and people are dying because of this. Financial remuneration for organ donors would dramatically increase the amount of organs available. This market would also cut costs. For example, 500,000 Americans are on dialysis, and caring for each one costs around $100,000 a year, with Medicare paying most of said bill. That is a lot of money. A market for human organs could also severely reduce the amount of money spent for each patient in the long run. This market would also increase the supply of organs, as the majority of organ donors come from donors that are dead. If the market for human organs were to be legalized, people would have a financial incentive to donate, which would dramatically increase the supply of organs and less people would die. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Urdaneta, and to start with our position, we agree with the definition that was previously mentioned, okay? The team's line is the preservation of the current organ donation system. Our team's outline is by legalizing the market increases the possibility of the inequity of the system. To refute what has been said, we already accept the ethic of private healthcare. It is not unreasonable that the seriously ill person is entitled to spend their own money on saving their own lives. It is preferable that some individuals receive organs and survive and none at all. There is a spurious equality in everybody dying. The wealthy will not be the sole beneficiaries of a policy of organ purchase. For each successful kidney transplant operation, valuable hours on a dialysis machine will be left vacant. The expense of palliative care for an individual requiring a transplant operation will be eliminated. We stand that one of the arguments against making the buying and selling of organs legal is that it would likely lead to a society where only the rich would be able to access a life-saving organ transplants, and the poor would be the main contributors of those organs. Currently, in the US system works against this inequality by not paying or charging people for organs and only creating people organ transplants by putting them on a first come, first served waiting list. Okay? This means that regardless of whether someone is rich or poor, an individual will have the same chance of receiving an organ transplant as the next person. When there is an organ market, it creates an exploitative dynamic between the rich and poor, where the poor sell their organs and often not compensated fairly. The opportunity for individuals and governments to gain considerable capitals for organs sold will lead to appalling human rights violation. And for example, we have Chinese judicial officials are reported to execute prisoners on account of the black market value of their body parts. The lawful sale of organs would legitimize human sacrifice.
Hello, I'm Fernandez, and to continue our team line, the pro-legalization of a market for human organs, to reboot what has been said, systems like the one in the US and others like it are not the only viable options for saving people's lives. A properly organized and functioning system will regulate the demand for organs without creating an exploitative dynamic within society. This has been proven by Iran's regulated organ trade market, whose program compensates donors for giving up their organs and has led to the complete removal of the waiting list for kidney transplants. Moreover, a study found that while the majority of kidneys sold in Iran came from people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, everyone, whether rich or poor, was able to have an equal accessibility to kidney transplants because of funding from not-profit organizations. Besides, while exploitative side deals have been struck outside of the government-regulated system, Iran has been able to avoid many of the ethical problems that often arise from the selling of organs. Now, to follow up with our team line, Harvard economist Jeffrey Miron argues that a regulated legal market will actually lower the cost per organ because the donation pool will be expanded. A viable legal system with many of the same processes and permutations as the current voluntary system could easily be put into place. The cost benefit, we consider that also the cost benefit of a sanctioned organ trade extends to insurance companies and brokers as well. For example, it is far more cost efficient to pay for a kidney transplant than to keep a patient alive on dialysis. These types of transplants currently pay for themselves within 2 years as opposed to the cost of keeping patients alive through expensive treatments. Also, as deaths from transplant operations continue to fall, transplants become more desirable. Legalization will allow authorized brokers to turn profits while reducing the number of their legal counterparts. If the goal is to improve the quality and quantity of the supply of much needed tissues without creating more harm to the public, legalizing the sale of human organs may be worth pursuing. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rincon, and to refute what has been said, legalizing the sale of human organs raises ethical concerns about exploiting vulnerable populations and commodifying the human body. It could also incentivize risky behavior and lead to a black market for organs. While a regulated market may lower costs and expand the donation pool, any decision to legalize organ trade must be made with careful consideration for the well-being of all individuals involved. Well, and now to continue with our team line that is pro the preservation of the current organ donation system, we have that first, the sale of organs is a poor solution to a pressing problem. The BMA has proposed a system of presumed consent. This scheme would allow doctors to assume that the organs of a deceased patient can be used for transplant unless the patient or his family have made a contrary request. Alternatively, the BMA has advocated radical revision of the inefficient system by which patients are matched to donors. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has proposed the development of a website that would link patients, surgeons, and donors nationwide. The BMA also envisages the deployment of multi-organ retrieval teams, led by hospital consultants in order to ensure that any available organs are not lost from cadaveric donors. Also, the market in body parts that thrives in the United States is neither successful nor to be welcome. The sale of embryos, eggs, and sperm in the United Kingdom is provided by the Human Fertilization and Embryology. Surrogacy arrangements are not permitted. Blood is collected by voluntary donation. The U.S. regularly suffers the donation of infected blood given by deceased citizens compelled by the available reward. The paternity and maternity litigation concerning egg and sperm donors and surrogate mothers is pervasive and persistent. Putting a price on the human body only invites exploitation by the unscrupulous. Also, potential donors would be more likely to conceal conditions or illnesses that might rule them out. Thank you.
So, I take the stand once again. We are pro-legalization of a market for human organs. Now, as you mentioned, the potential creation of a black market if the market for human organs is legalized. However, there already exists a black market for organs, and the main reason for its creation is due to the illegalization of organ selling. We only have to date back to the 1920s in the Prohibition era to know how a black market is created when you make something illegal. So that doesn't make sense. And when you mention the exploitation of the system, this can only be done in clinics that do not conduct testing and no background checks on their donors. We consider that a fraction of the potential profits made from an organ sale could be dedicated to conducting proper testing and background checks on the sellers. As the margins would allow for this, and well, would somebody want to pay a high amount of money for a faulty product? No, right? So, to summarize our point, the US, like most countries, has a shortage of organ donors, while having a long waiting list for kidney transplants, and people die because of that. Financial remuneration for organ donors would dramatically increase the supply of organs and reduce the cost for caring for patients in the long run, like the ones on dialysis. Harvard economics Jeffrey Myron suggests that a regulated, legal market would expand the donor pool and lower the cost per patient. Organ transplants are more cost-effective than other treatments in the long term, as I already said. Legalization would also reduce illegal organ selling. Thank you.
Again, we are pro of the preservation of the current organ donation system in the US. Both the idea of allowing financial remuneration for organ donors and legalizing the sale of human organs are controversial with potential ethical concerns. This could create a market for human body parts and may incentivize risky behavior and lead to exploitation of the poor and vulnerable. There is also a risk of decreased quality and safety of organs due to potential dishonesty from donors. Other methods to increase organ donation rates, such as improving public awareness, also exploring alternative sources of organs, should be considered instead. Ultimately, efforts should be focused on improving access to healthcare and preventative measures to reduce the incidence of kidney disease, in this case, rather than creating a market for human organs. Additionally, legalizing the sale of human organs could lead to a two-tier system where only the wealthy can afford the best organs. Instead, the solution to high healthcare costs should focus on improving access to healthcare and preventative measures to reduce the incidence of kidney disease and other ones. To summarize, we are against legalizing the buying and selling of organs because that would lead to a society where only rich could access to life-saving transplants, while the poor would be the main suppliers of organs. The current US system works against this inequality by not paying or charging people for organs and only granting organ transplants based on a first come, first served waiting list. The opportunity for individuals and governments to gain considerable capital for organs sold will lead to appalling human rights violation that was mentioned before. We also gave some alternative solutions, such as the BMA's proposed system of presumed consent or the revision of the inefficient system by which patients are matched to donors. Thank you.
Thank you. We now close the debate and will let the judges deliberate in order for them to choose a winning team.